Morning, magandang umaga po. This meeting is now called to order. Saan si COMSEC? Committee is directing the COMSEC to acknowledge our resource persons.
Good afternoon, Senator. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's proposed budget for the Philippine National Oil Company. With us is the Undersecretary of the Department of Energy, Jesus Cristino P. Posadas. Also, from the Philippine National Oil Company, we have the President and CEO, Admiral Ruben S. Lista, retired. Also, Senior Vice President for Finance and Administrative Services, Ms. Glenda G. Martinez. The Senior Vice President for Energy Business, Attorney Graciela Barleta. The OIC Senior Vice President for Energy Investments, we have Attorney Cesarina A. Aquitana. From the Philippine National Oil Company Exploration Corporation, we have the OIC President, Ms. Lourdes S. Helacio, and Mr. Jaime A. Bacu, the Vice President for Upstream Operations. From the Philippine National Oil Company Renewables Corporation, we have the President and CEO, Mr. John A. Arenas, the Vice President for Corporate Services, Attorney Josephine Cassandra J. Cui, and the the Planning Manager, Ms. Grace C. David. That's all, Senator.
Thank you, COMSEC. Again, thank you very much for joining us in this budget hearing. So that we can finish early, let's proceed with the PowerPoint presentation of PNOC. Let's go straight to the point para we can discuss the budget and also the proposals for 2020. So we turn over the microphone to Admiral, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to everyone. As you noticed, sir, we are here now in full force. We are again sorry for the absence of our two presidents last time, but we are back, and we are here very eager to present our 2020 budget. And may I request that we give the floor to my Senior Vice President for Finance and Admin, Glenda Martinez.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, my colleagues in the energy sector. PNOC's, slide please. PNOC's budget for 2020 amounts to 1.024 billion, of which 181 million or 18% is for personnel services, 326.39 million is for MOOE or 32%, and for capital outlay, 50% or 516.63 million pesos. Next slide, please. PNOC's budget for 2020 is 107% or 530 million higher than the 2019 level of 494 million. Variance between two periods is the increase in capital expenditures in 2020. Our personal services for 2020 of 181 million is lower by 3.51 million than the 2019 level of 184.63 million. The 2019 budget was based on the proposed plantilla positions on the new table of organization as submitted to GCG, while the 2020 budget was based on the GCG-approved plantilla positions on the new table of organizations, where there are changes in the position titles and salary grades, making the GCG approval lower than the proposed version. Both 2019 and 2020 are 175 positions funded. Our MOE for 2020 budget of 326.39 million is higher by 83.33 million than the 2019 level of 246.05. The significant increases in the MOE are the following. But for the trainings and seminars, PNOC is adopting the competency-based training and development to address the competency negative gaps of its employees. Also, PNOC employees need to be retooled now that it is transforming from a holding to an operating company. Likewise, to comply with the requirements of port operations, both local and international standards, personnel assigned at the energy supply base has to be sent to several port-related trainings as well as environmental ones. For the professional services, it increased by 51 million, specifically for the hiring of consultant to do the feasibility study for the strategic petroleum reserve project of the company. Utility expenses increased by 22 million because of the increase in the operational activities at the energy supply base and the provision for increase in electricity rates at the BGC facilities. Likewise, the general services such as janitorial, security, managerial, and contracted services increased by 10 million due to the provision of salary wage increase as mandated by the National Wage Board. For our capital outlay, the biggest chunk of our budget of 516.63 million or 50% is for the increase in the capital outlay specifically for the phase 1 of the construction of a new pier at the energy supply base in Batangas, consisting of mobilization and construction of sheet piles backup area in the amount of 324.95 million. Other capital outlays are for major repairs in the PNOC buildings at Fort Bonifacio and for the continuous upgrading of facilities and equipment at ESB. Next slide, please. For 2020 corporate priorities, for number 1, PNOC's re-entry into the downstream oil business, particularly in product sourcing, storage, and distribution segments of the value chain, is calculated to contribute to at least to the 2 of the 8 energy sector strategic directions laid out by DOE for 2017 to 2040. These are to ensure energy security, strengthen consumer welfare and protection. PNOC is in the process of preparing a project framework report which should be subjected to validation through a detailed feasibility study. The PNOC and PNOCEC boards have also approved to jointly establish a petroleum products storage facility in Limay, Bataan. Second is the completion of the DFS for the establishment of a strategic petroleum reserve for the country. PNOC is in the process of crafting the terms of reference for the engagement of consultant for the conduct of the detailed feasibility study for the establishment of the SPR, which will serve as the basis for crafting, among others, the policies, the framework, protocol, and necessary legislation for the SPR. Next slide, please. We want to continue the optimization of the remaining 97.67 petajoules of PNOC's bank gas. Due to the new and emerging LNG markets, there is a need to look for partners to explore ways to best optimize the remaining 97.67 petajoules of PNOC's bank gas in order to maximize profits for the government. The bank gas is and will continue to be a prime product of the company. The growing interest from the market has also attracted proposals for gas-fired power plants, which can contribute to generated capacity. Another priority is to concretize PNOC's role as the government's corporate arm and investment or participation in the LNG hub value chain. The LNG hub project is one of the proposed natural gas infrastructure projects identified in the 2017 to 2040 Philippine Energy Plan for the downstream natural gas sector, intended to address the increasing gap between energy supply and demand. PNOC is currently in the exploration stage with potential partners. We shall continue to pursue the current plans, programs, activities for the development and management of PNOC's real estate assets. PNOC is engaged in the continuous development and efficient management of its real estate assets. We are likewise upgrading the capacity and facilities within the energy supply base ESB to accommodate larger vessels and additional cargo. Excuse me. PNOC assumed the operation of ESB from PNOCEC in January 1 of 2018. ESB provides support services and logistics facilities for onshore and offshore exploration activities in petroleum and other energy-related fields. With current locators at the ESB now up to 21, PNOC is prioritizing investment in upgrades towards the expansion, improvement, uninterrupted operations of the ESB port. We continuously and efficiently manage and operate the PNOC Industrial Park. At the end of 2016, PNOC AFC's operation were transitioned into and assumed by PNOC as administrator. PAFC's activities were fully integrated into PNOC's operation in 2017 in accordance with GCG-approved transition plan in Memorandum Order Number 2014-26. We shall continue to oversee the strategic business directions and operations of PNOC EC and PNOC RC in line with PNOC's corporate governance over its two remaining subsidiaries. PNOC approves and monitors the implementation of their respective work plans, programs, and budget spending in accordance with their mandate. PNOC is continuing to implement the GCG's approved reorganization plan. GCG approved the reorganization plan of PNOC and officially transmitted it on September 12, 2018. The PNOC Placement Committee is currently in the process of implementing the reorganization plan as approved. At present, 100% of the employees have already been placed to their comparable positions based on the new table of organization. We have passed the ISO 9001:2015 recertification of PNOC Quality Management System. PNOC is committed to observe and maintain the highest standards in quality in all its processes. We have passed the first surveillance audit of PNOC Industrial Parks Integrated Management System, ISO 9001:2015, ISO 14001:2015, and ISO 45001:2018. And lastly but not the least, we are ensuring that we shall adequately and timely provide the compliance requirements of all government oversight agencies insofar as the reportorial requirements are concerned. With that, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. I have a few questions. No? Number one is the energy supply base. Half of the budget of PNOC, amounting to 569 million, will go to the development of the energy supply base. No? I just want to know the details of this energy supply base, considering that almost ₱500 million will be plowed into this development, of which construction of a new pier, construction of a administrative building. So ano po yung strategy with this energy supply base?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, the ESP has not been maintained since 23 years ago. And it is a part of our mandate. And we prepared a briefing for this committee, Mr. Honorable Chairman. And may I request Attorney Ella Barleta to brief you on the ESB. Thank you, sir.
You have a PowerPoint?
Yes, sir,
Attorney?
we do have a PowerPoint for
Sige.
this.
Let's load the PowerPoint. There.
Good afternoon, Honorable Senator. We are pleased to present to you the PNOC Energy Supply Base and its proposed development. On June 24, 1977, through Letter of Instruction Number 563, then President Ferdinand Marcos mandated PNOC to establish and operate by itself or through operators a bonded warehouse to be used and converted into an internationally accepted exploration supply base. The directive is in line with the state policy to accelerate exploration, hence the need to support logistic facilities for onshore and offshore exploration activities in petroleum and other energy-related fields. This mandate still remains true up to date, particularly when we are now aggressively pursuing exploration. With the primary mandate, next slide please. With the primary mandate to provide support and logistic facilities for onshore and offshore exploration activities, this energy infrastructure called the PNOC Energy Supply Base was given birth on a 19.2 hectare property located 120 kilometers from Manila, particularly at Mabini, Batangas. Next slide, please.
Lang kita. Can let's go back. So ito lahat ang energy supply base, including that Barangay San Francisco, which is an undeveloped area. Is that
The
correct?
barangay is within a portion of the hilly area. The 19.2 is divided into 10.55 hectares. It's in the next slide, sir.
Okay.
So this is divided into 10.55 hectares serving as the site for the energy supply base operations. 4.27 hectares are leased by Petron for its bulk plant depot operation, and 4.40 hectare is the hilly or eroded area that PNOC intends to level down to be used as future site for an oil and gas storage facility or a strategic petroleum reserve, or for warehouses, open storage areas, and other energy-related facilities. Next slide, please. The coastline of ESB extends to 550 linear meters. ESB was first operated by the PNOC subsidiary, the PNOC Dockyard and Engineering Corporation. It was then later on turned over to Petron when Petron was still 100% PNOC subsidiary. Eventually, it was operated by the PNOC Exploration Corporation, and then in 2018, this 42-year-old facility was turned over to PNOC with the three piers: the triangular pier, the marginal wharf, and the Roro, or are all at an almost dilapidated condition and in need of rehabilitation for its continuous use and to ensure its safety. Next slide, please. As the only energy supply base in the country, ESB is strategically located. The Palawan area is where a number of oil and gas exploration service contracts were awarded by DOE, such as the Nido, Matinloc, Galok. All are oil-producing wells. Octon, Bonita, West Linapacan in Northwest Palawan. Nido Petroleum Philippines, the holder of Service Contract 54, also in Northwest Palawan. The proximity of ESB to these exploration areas makes it the viable location to address the support and logistical requirements of the exploration companies. As we very well know, there are no storage or staging areas at the exploration sites. The PNOC ESB is the site where their equipment, machineries, and supplies necessary in the conduct of exploration activities are stored, maintained, cleaned, and repaired. Next slide, please. Why is there a necessity to develop the PNOC ESB? Foremost, this is the mandate of PNOC. As an energy company and the oil and gas arm of the government, PNOC is mandated to provide vital energy infrastructure conducive to a balanced and sustainable growth of the economy. ESB is an energy infrastructure. In fact, it is the only energy supply base in the country, providing support and logistic facilities for onshore and offshore exploration and other energy activities. Next slide, please. The presence and availability of this energy infrastructure complements PD 87, or the Oil Exploration and Development Act of 1972, and it encourages investors, both foreign and local, to pursue energy exploration activities in the country. By providing a storage and logistic facility that is strategically located, it encourages energy companies to aggressively pursue exploration of the country's oil, petroleum, and gas resources in response to the call to open more opportunities for energy activities to address the growing need to provide a stable and sustainable source of energy for the country. Next slide, please. Further, we cannot allow an already existing facility of the government to be underutilized and to simply deteriorate when, because of its strategic location, there is in fact a necessity to maximize its potentials. The PNOC ESB is a viable site for storage facility, particularly for the envisioned strategic petroleum or fuel reserves, as well as for a floating storage and regasification unit or a floating power plant once the port facilities are developed. The potentials and possibilities for other energy activities for this particular government asset could be innumerable. As the only energy supply base in the country, its continuous deterioration will result to the country losing an opportunity to remain as the only energy supply base, playing a critical role to an industry that is heavily dependent on suppliers to provide complex services and critical equipment to support ongoing projects and operations. In fact, not to develop this particular government asset opens the door for Labuan Port of Malaysia to provide the service to Philippine exploration activities that the Philippine government should provide. The Labuan Port is in fact patterned after our ESB and is also located near the exploration areas in Palawan. Finally, as a customs bonded warehouse, ESB helps companies to expedite the unloading and loading of cargoes. Next slide, please. Allow us to briefly present the proposed development for the PNOC energy supply base. The development of the facility will consist of extending the port to the 15-meter draft, upgrading of the triangular port, and construction of reinforced concrete wharf that will increase shipment and berthing capacity to accommodate larger vessels ranging from 35,000 to 70,000 deadweight tons. The construction of a backup area will provide additional space for storage or placement of gantry cranes. Next slide, please. Construction of the new port will provide more shipment capacity for loading and unloading of products. Next slide, please. Part of the development is to level the 4.40 hectare hilly area to open the same to various energy possibilities. It could serve as a site for the oil and petroleum storage facility, site for the government's strategic petroleum reserve, power plant facilities, and even additional warehouses or an open storage space for exploration equipment once aggressive exploration activities are undertaken. The earth and gravel materials from the hill will be used to fill the backup area. The described development are currently being subjected to a detailed feasibility study. Next slide, please. On the financial perspective, funding source for the development of ESB will be from internally generated funds. We have provided a budget for its development in the total amount of 1.2 billion. This will be incurred in phases until its completion by 2024. For 2020, PNOC will incur cost in the amount of 324.95 million. For 2021, 342.19 million. For 2020, 325.08 million. And by 2023, 214.11 million. Next slide, please. Financial projection for this project will show that the 1.2 billion development cost will be recovered in 4 years from the time of completion of construction. Recovery period will be from 2025 to 2028. This is actually the rationale for the phased development. We intend to continue operating the facility while construction is ongoing and earning income thereon. This will ensure the developments for each phase will be partially funded from the revenues generated by the facility itself. Next slide, please. The timeline for the construction of the energy supply base is 36 months. It will be done in 3 phases as follows. Phase 1 in 15 months, or from August 2020 to October 2021. It will consist of mobilization and demobilization, construction of sheet piles and backup area. Phase 2 will be for 14 months beginning November 21 to December 2022, consisting of the construction of the reinforced concrete wharf and 6 units of Ro-Ro ramp. And Phase 3 in 7 months from January to July 2023. This will consist of the demolition of the triangular pier structure, construction of access trestle, construction of reinforced concrete wharf 1, construction of reinforced platform with fire pump room. With that, we hope that the good senator will favorably endorse our proposed development. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, attorney. Let's stick to this phasing. No, right now, ano ang activity ng ESB currently?
Sir, currently, the ESB continues to receive loading and unloading of materials from exploration companies that are located. They have warehouses that are located in ESB.
These are the 21. I think it was mentioned there.
Yes.
21 locators.
Yeah, there are 12 energy-related locators, and we also have locators that are commercial in nature.
Can we go to that slide yung may parcellary na merong mga ano? Yung may parcels, not parcels.
May portions.
Yung mga na-subdivide yung property. Yung map. Yeah. One more. Yeah. So this one, the locators are exploration companies.
There are exploration companies, sir.
Okay. And the others you mentioned earlier.
These are commercial locators.
Okay. Ano ang activity ng oil exploration companies?
Sir, mostly what they use the ESB for is the storage of their equipments and also for purposes of when they need to load equipments to be brought to the exploration areas, the sites. They use the facility.
So this is the jumping point.
Yes, sir.
This is the jumping point. Do they store oil?
No, they do not store
So
oil.
this purely equipment.
Equipment, machineries.
Okay. And then you mentioned earlier there are 3 piers, no,
Yes,
currently. Itong 3 piers are operated by PNOC right now.
Yes, sir. We do have a permit to operate from the PPA.
Okay. And then itong Petron bulk plant does not use any of those pier.
They have their own. Sir. This one, sir.
Okay.
This pier here, jetty, this is the one being used exclusively by Petron.
They use that one. How about the triangular and the others? In
Sir,
Sororo.
Sir, no, they do not use that.
They don't use that,
Yes.
no? So itong tatlo is being used by the oil exploration companies right now.
Either the oil exploration companies or for commercial purposes.
But from the picture, wala akong nakitang mga warehouse eh.
Sir, this one,
It's a Petron, di ba? But yung blue portion, which is the...
for Petron, they do not have warehouses. What they have are the storage
depots.
tanks.
But for the ESB,
For the ESB, we have warehouses. These are the warehouses. in
itong
Hawaii.
mga puti.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So yan ang linilis ng mga oil exploration companies.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then, so they lease the oil exploration, they lease the warehouses and they use the
The port-
pier.
Yes.
And they pay fees
Yes.
for
sir.
the usage. Okay. Now, the construction of the new pier, let's go to the next slide. Isa pa. One more. Kanina may...
Yeah.
Yan. So, this is the proposal,
Yes, sir.
basically. This is 1.2 billion in total,
Yes.
of which it will be done in phases.
3
no?
phases. Yes, sir.
In 3 phases, in a span of 5 years. Tama ba?
36 months.
36 months. Okay. And the project calls for a construction of a new pier.
Yes, sir.
Correct? Nasaan dyan yung new pier?
Sir, this area here, colored areas here, will be the new pier because this will be extended to a 15 meters draft. Currently, yung draft po currently of this pier only extends up to 10 meters.
Okay, so palalamlimin yung draft niya.
Yes, sir.
So the entire orange portion is the pier.
It
that
also
correct?
includes what they call the backup area. Ang
Backup-
pier is on this side and then the backup area also.
Okay. And then the blue one, mayroong blue...
This one, sir, this is also a pier. This is supposed to replace the triangular pier. This
Okay.
one.
So the entire orange and blue area is the new pier.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this will service the oil exploration companies.
Yes, sir.
Yan ang main client ba natin in oil exploration companies?
Sir, both of them, the commercial and the oil exploration
Okay.
companies.
What are the commercial?
Sir, the commercial mostly includes unloading of steel billets, silica. We also take on the
These
rice.
are for construction.
They use that as raw materials for their products. And then we also have the NFA uses the port for the rice.
So anong percentage ang oil exploration, anong percentage ang non-oil exploration in the revenue stream of this pier?
Sir, it's half-half.
Half-half.
Yes, sir.
So half will be oil exploration, half will be non.
None.
Yung sinabi mo kanina, these are construction materials
Sir,
Tama ba?
these are steel billets
for steel companies.
for steel companies, silica sand, which they also use for cleaning up of material of the equipment for exploration companies,
Okay.
silica, and then we also have sugar and rice.
So itong pier, it's not purely energy based. It's also a regular pier.
Yes, sir. Because if we dedicate this only for energy-related activities, there will be instances or times where the pier will be vacant.
Okay.
So in order to maximize the use of the pier, we use it also for commercial.
Can we go to the revenue stream? Yung revenue stream more. Yeah, sige pa. Yan. So itong revenue stream na ito, these are the projected revenues,
Yes, sir.
correct? How much of the 50, you said 50-50 will be oil exploration and 50%
For
will be
the
non-oil
commercial.
exploration. And these are the projected net income. Tama?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Doon sa yung oil exploration is substantial, no, 50%. But I also saw a lot of data that there are no new exploration being conducted. In fact, the only producing well is Malampaya, which they have their own facility. So yung mga maliliit like Galok, the other ones, they're already close to diminishing. No? And I know for a fact that there are no new exploration that will happen in the next 3 to 5 years. No? So, accurate ba itong revenue stream natin?
We made the projections based on what we are currently receiving from the operations of the ESB. So the projections we made is based on the increase in the port facilities will redound also to an increase in the sizes of the vessels that can berth at the ESB. That's why there is a substantial increase in revenue.
But the berthing facility, the vessels, the bigger vessels are not energy related. They're
Some
not exploration related.
Sir, now they are not exploration. Bigger vessels now cannot dock in ESB
Mm.
because of the depth of the port or of the water. But once we have that development, then bigger vessels can now use the facility. We do have inquiries, but we have to deny them because it cannot be accommodated by the port
But the
it
bigger
is
vessels
current.
are not energy related. These are not oil tankers. These are not LNG tankers.
Sir, not yet because these LNG tankers cannot be accommodated by
Oh,
the
kasi walang
current.
tangke.
At
No,
saka sir, yung pong lalim, hindi po kaya.
correct. No, I'm just saying, kung nag-invest na tayo, pinalaliman na natin, so papasok na yung mga vessels, are these energy-related vessels or non-energy related?
This will be energy-related vessels because we intend to level the hilly area and that is where we can now construct or have the storage facilities for the oil reserves or the petroleum reserves. So, because we have already the developed port that can accommodate bigger vessels that can transport the LNG or the energy vessels.
My point here is, the revenue stream is 50-50, no? And that's how we computed it. But ang contention ko, I know for a fact that we're not exploring. No? In fact, there are no new, it's Yusek Posadas can join in if you can, ano. But there are no new drilling or no new wells coming in online in the next 5 years. So meaning, half of your revenue stream is questionable. No? That's number one. Number two, if you're saying that oil tankers will come in, but we don't have tanks. Wala tayong oil depot, wala tayong gas tanks. So, saan i-store yung mga produktong dadating dyan?
Sir, part of the study which we are currently conducting, the detailed feasibility study, will also include the possibility of creating the storage facility within the hilly portion. And that is also, I think, also included in the study being conducted by our subsidiary, the PNOCEC, for the joint storage facility, a secondary area for the joint storage facility.
That is part of the strategic petroleum reserve project. No, I'll go to that later on. But my point of the matter is, the income stream looks attractive. No, because to me, I'll take a step back. No, I'll be defending your budget. Yeah, I want to make sure that I cover everything, and the justification for this investment is because the um, uh, the payback period of this project is 4 years, which is very good, no, by all standards. But the revenue stream will come from where? And if we're saying 50% will come from oil exploration companies, but there will be no exploration companies in the next 5 years, then 50% of your revenue is already doubtful. Yun lang ang gusto ko, ano.
Mr.
Admiral,
Chairman,
yes.
it's not, we are not only talking about oil exploration, Mr. Chairman. We are energy-related businesses, meaning to say, if we have operationalized the 4.43 hectares, we have leveled it up, put up infrastructure to receive energy-related businesses, then it will be more than 50% of our income. And if you notice the statement of Attorney Ella, Mr. Chairman, a while ago, we have been denying requests for energy-related ships because they couldn't dock, because our draft there is only from 10 to 12 meters, and they need something like 15 meters, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Yes, Admiral. In fact, the non-energy revenue, that is a good way of subsidizing, the lack of revenue in this case. No, if we're saying that we're taking in cargo that will supply steel companies, even rice, that's fine because we need revenue so we can survive. But the other half, which is a significant portion, the 50%, we have to make sure that that's real. No, that revenue stream will come in, because part of the argument is a good payback period of 4 years. Now, the next question, Admiral, is if you are taking in big vessels, typically big vessels will only come in if you have tanks, no? But in the three phases, I saw in the three phases, I was looking at the activities, walang construction of tanks doon. No.
Correct, Mr. Chairman, because the study is only on the ESB. We have another study, Mr. Chairman, which will be presented by Attorney Lila a little later, and the SPR, and this is a part of the study, which will be intertwined with this particular project.
Can we go to the phasing? Punta tayo dun sa, yeah, no. I was looking at this closely. I don't see the construction of tanks eh.
Wala ho dito. Wala ho dito
So,
kasi...
if you're attracting big vessels, no, for example, crude oil, delivery of Panamax level vessels, saan nila i-unload yung kanilang produkto?
Wala pa ho dito, Mr. Chairman. We will present it during the oil SPR and the oil reserves.
But my point of the matter is, part of our revenue, part of again our projection of revenue is to attract big vessels in the next 4 to 5 years. But how can we attract big vessels if we don't have tank facilities? Okay.
Sir, if I may, this particular project is limited to the infrastructure in terms of real estate development. On the side of storage, we've actually compartmentalized that separately as another investment. It should be covered by the oil stockpiling project because then it will be part of that whole development or plan. This one is merely for the real estate development. So when they develop that hilly portion and flatten it, that will be considered as one of the prime locations, strategic locations, where the storage facilities may be put up by PNOC, whether it's for the oil stockpiling by the government itself or being leased out to private oil companies or importers. That's something that we are studying, including in the detailed feasibility studies. Thank you.
Attorney, that's part of your request to increase the budget for professional.
That's for the detailed feasibility studies of 50 million, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
where is that?
Um,
Ito 87 million, correct?
no, 50.
50?
Just the 50 is for the DFS of the oil stockpiling SPR project.
Okay. There's an increase in professional services from 36 million to 87 million.
Yeah, but only 50 million of that will be set aside for the DFS.
Okay,
The rest
okay.
are for others.
So the construction of tanks is hinged on the feasibility study.
Yes, that will the feasibility studies will determine now whether or not that area will be suitable for the storage facilities. But we also have other areas that we'll be considering, which are also, some of them will be properties already owned by PNOC, and others maybe not PNOC but still strategically located and fit for that purpose that we are trying to.
Let's go back to the revenue stream. So is it so in this revenue stream, the acceptance of big Panamax size vessels is not included here because wala pa tayong tanks. Tama ba?
Sir, yung for the tanks, wala pa po dyan.
Wala pa. So these are just I would say
For the existing activities, and actually what we have also included is for the projected revenue for the use of the Healy area for warehouses, not yet the storage facility.
okay, so included in your revenue is the use of the Healy area.
Yes.
Yung kaninang pinakita nyo kanina.
Yes, sir.
And that's part of the revenue stream.
Yes, sir.
As what? Lease?
For lease.
For lease. Who will be leasing
Sir, it's either be commercial or for exploration also. So it can be a warehouse or it can remain to be an open storage area.
So they will lease as raw land.
Yes, sir. We will have it leveled down. It can just be an open space or a cemented space, or we can put in warehouses, prefabricated
Yeah,
warehouses.
but it's not here.
That is the revenue is already included in the projection. But for the construction of the warehouses, that will be a separate budget for that.
When is that
That
going
is
to
not
happen?
yet included for the 2020.
Oo. Just ang ano ko lang naman is later on, no, so just submit to us the breakdown of this revenue because this is an investment. This energy supply base project is an investment, and like any other investment, you have to make sure that the money gets returned. No, and gets returned with a respectable internal rate of return. But we also have to make sure that the revenue stream are realistic because the payback period might be off if the revenue stream is not realistic. That's why I'm very particular with the revenue stream. Saan ba manggagaling yung kita natin? Manggagaling ba yan sa non-energy? Manggagaling ba yan sa energy? But sa energy is questionable nga because wala tayong exploration lately. We have geopolitical issues. No? So, we have to make sure that these revenue projections are realistic and credible, or else the whole project will be in question. No? If you're saying that it will be used for non-energy, okay lang because at least that's revenue. No? In the meantime, we can use the non-energy as pangtakip para sa revenue. Okay, that's one. I just give us a detailed breakdown of the revenue, and uh, again, I'm going to defend this budget. I have to make sure that the investment is worthwhile and the investment will be returned to the coffers of government. No? Talking about yung um, energy supply base, and then we had a hearing once on the strategic petroleum reserve. No, I understand the PNOC is tasked to build that strategic petroleum reserve. No, and there's a request of 50 million to jumpstart the study. No, is there any preliminary study whether this strategic petroleum reserve is realistic or not realistic? Because I'm sure you did some preliminary study. No, 50 million for a full-blown study is quite hefty. But sana naman before we spend that 50 million, meron na tayong pre-feasibility to determine whether that is realistic or not. Because my off-top reaction is, who will pay for the inventory? Number one. Number two is, who will pay for the infrastructure? So it might be prohibitive for our taxpayers to pay that. So ano yung preliminary pre-feasibility on this strategic petroleum reserve?
Mr. Chair, basically this comes from the concept that of energy security, and the strategy is really to ensure that we have, because given this current policy regime of deregulated and privatized fuel and even the power sector, it is in the private sector's hands that the energy security rests. And therefore, it's now being considered that government has to play a role if and when emergency or contingencies arise. And therefore, given what had happened in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia last September 14, there was in fact, this was taken up in the cabinet assistance system, that is government prepared if ever, for example, a disruption of the supply chain happens. And will we leave that to the private sector to do that? So now the concept is government must play a role. And therefore, in fact, tinatanong na nga what happens if wala pang ang tangke ang gobyerno? Well, we said, let's first evaluate the current storage capacities in the refineries, in the import terminals, in the distribution depots, and And it was shown that on an emergency, we may opt to utilize the empty spaces in the storage capacities of the private sector as an initial emergency response. But of course, uh, that will now give a flavor of what what is the return of how if government itself would really put up the infrastructure. So that's really where it's coming from, Mr. Chair. The strategic value, not so much maybe on the returns, because really this is really government's role to really address such emergencies, if only to respond to government requirements itself, like for example the military, the LGUs, so that even government has to. In fact, I was thinking on the line of even the SPAG areas, the diesel requirements of the SPAG areas, for example, which is being bought by Napocor. If there was a disruption in the supply of diesel for the SPAG areas, which is about 2% of total electrification, we are actually jeopardizing the rural areas. So therefore, we saw it significant that really a strategic oil reserve has to be in place, if ever, only to ensure that we don't cut that type of service to the, especially to the rural areas, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Yusek. I do acknowledge that the government should play a deeper role in ensuring energy security in our country, uh, even though we operate in a deregulated environment. However, it's the government's responsibility to make sure that we have energy flowing no matter what, no? Because that's an energy cutoff is detrimental to all of us, no? Including our economy. Ngayon, as to what role the government plays is the next question, because any decision of that role will have an impact on cost. Whether that cost will be borne by government or it will be passed on to the consumer, that's a question that we need to answer. But in your initial study, um, what should be the role of government in this case in ensuring energy security?
Well, Mr. Chair, if we look at what had happened in the OPSF, it was really addressing price volatility. Today, we are now looking at supply security. So at that time, it was really a issue of building the OPSF during bear times, and then use that difference to absorb when the prices start to spike. But apparently, well, we would say that it was not carried out very well, and therefore it was scrapped. And we don't have that. And I suppose government really has to address that issue now. That we have done away with the OPSF. We are now really looking at fuel supply security.
See government building its own tanks
Well,
and its own infrastructure requirements.
well, Mr. Chair, that can be responded to maybe in a trial run, because like for example, when I was asked by Finance Secretary Dominguez if in an emergency what we will do, I told him that we could use spare capacities of the private sector first as an initial response, and see how we can how we can respond to emergencies in that manner, because we really have to turn around the inventory, and because we have to avoid carrying costs. So it's a question of what is the cost of inventory vis-a-vis the stock out cost of the economy.
Will that be covered by those questions? Will that be covered by the feasibility study, attorney?
Sir, to answer your previous question, there's been studies conducted on this, but these were preliminary, as you've said. In 2004, the Department of Energy actually had a cooperation with the United States government, Department of Energy too. They had a preliminary oil stockpiling study in 2004, which became a basis more or less of the framework that we're working on for the DFS that we are to conduct next year. And if you want, we can furnish you a copy of that if you still don't have a copy of the 2004 US DOE study on the oil stockpiling program. And I believe sometime in 2015 or 2015, then Secretary Monsada also initiated a study on internal study on the oil stockpiling, but that was purely government initiative, so that became very onerous. That's why it had to be abandoned. Again, we're looking at all those studies and looking at the best way we can customize it to our resources and assets readily available to at least have a semblance of an oil stockpiling in case of a very minimum what we will need in terms of response. But that will be validated according to
So what will the
DFS.
50 million feasibility study cover?
Basically, as you've seen in the presentation we gave you, we've submitted before your committee that there is this will cover the roles of the DOE, the PNOC, including the mix that should be required for an oil stockpiling, storage facilities, with also the timelines on which the phases of the stockpiling may be introduced, the other modes of stockpiling, or at least ensuring energy supply security. Like we've also mentioned before you that there's a government-to-government initiative that you would like to put in place, the mechanism of ensuring that there is a readily supply of variable or at least variety of access to ensure that if there is a geopolitical crisis in one part of the world, we still have access to supplies in other parts of oil-producing countries. So these are the things that we would like to look into, including how much we can actually source from the government, national government side, how much from PNOC side, and also we would like to know what kind of participation will be involved for private oil players and of course the community if we would like to impose more taxes, if the government needs to impose more taxes. That also needs to be studied carefully in order to have a sustainable stockpiling plan.
Anong timetable nitong feasibility study?
If we're able to bid it out or negotiate for it within the first 3 months of next year, the DFS supposedly should take 6 months.
So 6 months. So within 2020, we'll have 50 million is a huge amount.
We're not sure if it's going to be the full amount or if it's going to be less
That's
or
the
more.
price of the country's energy security. No?
Yes, sir.
So, but hopefully we'll get, within 2020, we'll get some form of direction on how to achieve energy security for our country. I
Yes.
think that's the whole objective, you know. It's not really the depots or the reserve, but how to achieve
just-
energy security.
It's just an oil stockpiling plan, contingency plan in case something happens, untoward happens, for instance.
So
And
within 6 months, meron na tayo.
after the negotiations, and including, sir, with that is maybe we can validate an SPR legislation, a draft of that, so we can, because we will need legislative support for this since it will be a holistic approach towards having an oil supply security and price more or less validation.
Thank you,
Thank
Attorney.
you.
But move on to another topic, yung bank gas. No? What is the status of our bank gas inventory? I know we sold some to Shell, correct? And then we
Philippine
still
Shell.
have about 97.67
0.67.
petajoules remaining. So give us an update on the bank gas situation.
Sir, so we have the remaining bank gas. We're still trying to optimize whether or not that will be, the optimization will be in the form of a sale, which we are trying to look at possible off-takers for the 97.67. A portion of that optimization options that we've considered is also as feedstock for a potential gas-fired power plant that may be put up anytime soon. Again, the problem with the LNG industry is that it's nascent. Basically, there's very limited off-takers, and most off-takers, if not all, are already contracted out with SC38. So whatever it is that are not, or at least excess volume that have not been met by SC38 GSPAs, we're looking into selling to those off-takers. For instance, the impending expiration of the SC38 GSPA with Ilihan, which is going to expire in 2022. So that's something that we can come in and sell portion of our bank gas, if not all of it, to PISAM or NPC.
So pricing will not be an issue anymore because I know that 97 had some pricing issues, correct?
But sir, that pricing issue came about in the previous board of PNOC
Correct.
Corporation,
But
because
yung
then they
nagpa-bid out
said
na
that.
kayo many times eh.
Yes. Then that bidding out was really aimed at setting a benchmark on what
Correct.
the market demands were at that time. So right now, since we know that there's very limited market, we are forced to actually look into a win-win situation for both the seller and the buyer in terms of the bank gas. Again, we are always mindful that we would like to optimize and get the best value for the bank gas that the PNOC has.
So meaning you can sell below
Ilihan,
the previous market price.
the
No.
Well, pricing, sir-wise, the previous benchmark of the previous board was Ilihan pricing, but that was because there was really no benchmarking made of the market demands at that time. However, now, because of the very limited market, we're looking at still the benchmarking on the current prices, existing prices of the market, vis-a-vis how much it's valued currently. If we have we're not valuing it at the value we bought it, but more of the value of this bank gas on the market. So maybe since there's
So
limited,
what's the current market? Is it above $6?
it's above that. So
It's above
it's above that.
$6.
It's around 7, 8.
So bakit hindi pa natin binebenta kung above? Kasi yan naman ang naging ano, 'di ba? Admiral, I remember in our hearing that became the barrier for the sale, no? Because we cannot, obviously, it will be quite questionable if we sell it below the Ilihan price of $6 per gigajoule. Ngayon, mas mataas na siya. So what's the remaining barrier?
Just like what Attorney Lila, Mr. Chairman said, kukunti ho ang bumibili nito kasi yung gumaganang susunog ho nito, meron na ho silang kontrata sa SC38. So, just like what Attorney Lila said, yung Ilihan will expire in 2022, the others in 2024. But aside from the existing power plants, we have three possible investors who are going into LNG power plants. We cannot reveal it now because they have not been given the notice to proceed. But they have been talking to us and napapaganda rin ho yung sa atin sa gobyerno kasi if you notice the price of our LNG before was 6.76. The international market price now is 10.52 and the Ilihan price now is 9.70. So, dun pa lang ho, and we have been assured in the last, if you remember, I'm sorry, when we had a meeting, a hearing at the Congress, Mr. Chairman, it was very specific that SC38 said there will be no stranded bank gas. And so, and if there is any negotiations with government, we have been assured by the department that our bank gas will be one of the first that will be taken out of any negotiations.
Admiral, there's the impending depletion of SC38, no, Malampaya, will also have an impact on how we extract the bank gas, correct? So how do we now, if we are having problems selling the bank gas and the depletion is ready, it's already quite near, no? We might have problems extracting it dahil naka-contingent siya on the existing gas coming out of Malampaya. So what is the strategy to that?
Tayo ho mag-negotiate, Mr. Chairman. So, uunahin ho natin ilalabas yung atin. So,
Yung buyers.
marami hong buyer in 2024, Mr. Chairman.
So after 2024,
If ever we cannot sell it now because there are no actual users today, the first user will be in 2022. Or if the three mentioned investors in the LNG power plant will have their power plant soon, yun lang ho ang bibili. So talagang the reason why we are not selling it now is they will buy it very cheap. The one offerer was only offering us $2.50 per gigajoules, and I think we cannot sell it at that price. And so we asked SC38 whether there will be standard bank gas or not, and when they assured that there will be none, and of course we will be negotiating for the next operator of the of the Malampaya, we are assured that we can sell it at a better price.
So the option is to wait until 2024 when Malampaya contracts expire, so we can now go to the market
No.
and sell it to existing,
No,
or
no.
wait for new power plants to come in.
The first option, Mr. Chairman, is which we are doing now. We are now selling to Shell,
Okay.
and they are buying again how much? No. How many petajoules?
2.7. 2.7.
They are
Additional.
buying again 2.7. We sold them 7 last time. That is the first option, Mr. Chairman. The second option is if there will be new investors, we can use this as our investment, or we can sell it to them at a better price. Number 3 is 2022 for Ilihan and or Pisam, and the third is any others after 2024. So in effect, we will not have any. We will still be better than selling it at $2.50.
Okay. Okay. At least that's good to know that we have options, no, on the table. Attorney, go.
If I may, sir. When we say depletion of Malampaya, this actually does not include our 97.67 anymore because this is already accounted for as part of the already sold and paid for bank gas. It's just called the bank gas because we've not actually extracted out of the Malampaya reserve. So it's not part of those that will be depleted. So because it's already accounted as contracted out, that's already an assured volume that PNOCEC has. The only limitation we have on that is our yearly offtake limits and daily offtake limits on the offtake agreement. Those are the limitations we have, and of course, pricing, getting the best value for the bank gas for the government. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney. Another item on the budget is the establishment of a natural gas pipeline or LNG hub. I think there's a request for 72 million pesos, no, for an establishment of natural gas pipeline or LNG hub. What are the details of this?
Actually, we've shelved this project, the LNG hub. Maybe this is for the payment of the. Is it the payment?
Yes, 72.8 million. The budget for establishment of natural gas pipeline / LNG hub.
When was we don't have that, Mr. Chairman, in our budget. We were wondering.
Wala ba yan?
72,004. That's for the payment of the. That's 72 million lang po yun.
72 million, correct.
Apo, yun yung payment of the to the PPP center on the initial study that they made sometime. That was made through the PPP. We have an outstanding payment to the one who made the feasibility study on the LNG pipeline on the Batman way back in 5 years ago. May payable po kami sa kanya. We provided 72 million.
2019, there was 100 million for feasibility of LNG hub.
What is the breakdown?
Ito yung 70 kasi yung sabi.
This is
Ito yung
correct.
breakdown. Hindi naman lahat po yung sabi.
No, we have to. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, the amount of because the staff are requested for the breakdown of the 72.8 million, which includes the LNG hub project is only 19,000. Petroleum product sourcing is 50 million. Other potential energy project, biomass is 5 million. And for the development of management of various energy, that's the composition of the 72 million. It was in the DBM Form 706 for the 2020 budget. That's for, sir, mga ano po yan, mga requirements ng DBM. But those are the composition of the 72. It's not anyway related, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, it's not in any way related to the Batman project pipeline. It's not.
So in other words, there's no establishment of natural gas pipeline slash LNG hub.
Yes, sir. No, none, sir.
Okay.
None.
Wala tayong ganyan
Wala
sa
po,
2020.
wala po.
But in 2019, there was 100 million for FS feasibility study
Opo.
for an LNG,
LNG hub project.
What
which was
happened to
not-
that? May 100
it
million
has
na yan
been- Hindi po namin siya nagamit. It
So
has
it's
been-
intact, hindi nyo
Opo,
nagamit.
Hindi po.
Is
No
there
use.
any reason bakit hindi nagamit? Kasi you requested for 100 million. So
If you notice, Mr. Chairman, we were supposed to establish an LNG hub. We wanted this to be, it was supposed to be bidded out already, but we were overtaken by events. And so we returned the 1 million each payment for the bidding, and we stopped the bidding, so we did not pursue the feasibility study anymore.
is that in any way connected to the Tanglawan
Yes, sir.
project?
Yes, sir. We
Because
do not want to compete with the private sector, and nung nauna na ho sila, and they took us as one of their partners, so we stopped it, Mr. Chairman.
An MOU or
Yes, we have an MOU with them.
with an
Mr. Chairman.
MOU with Tanglawan project. So
Yes.
Tanglawan will now be the proponent for this terminal and LNG hub.
As of today, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, what is the status of that? No, because it's
yes,
a combination of PNOC and Tanglawan. So I've been reading news reports about Tanglawan, but wala akong natatanglaw, wala akong nakikitang project eh. No, dahil it's only in the news report. So what's the update on the Tanglawan project?
I will request my major partners to answer that for me, Mr. Chairman, because I'm just a minor partner in the consortium.
What is the equity of PNOC in that?
Only 10%, Mr. Chairman.
Cash or
No. It's a part of possibly using our lands or possibly using our bancas again, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. You said any updates on the Tanglawan project? Because there was an intention to do a feasibility study on a possible LNG hub, no? Tapos nawala niyan because the Tanglawan project came in. So and what's the update on the Tanglawan project?
Well, Mr. Chair, the notice to proceed was given an extension. And if ever that extension will be over with what is granted, then it will be questioned to being cancelled. So we are now awaiting commitments on the proposed partners, if ever they will really proceed on that.
Anong date anong deadline ng notice to proceed? You extended the notice to proceed eh, no? So may expiry date yan eh. So ano yung bagong expiry date?
January 2020.
No, the reason why I'm questioning that is because PNOC is the possible joint venture. So ibig sabihin nakatali na yung PNOC diyan eh, no? Oh, non-exclusive.
It's a
Okay.
non-exclusive
Okay. So can you
partnership.
enlighten us on the MOA?
It's just an MOU, sir, basically.
MOU, okay.
It just says we are to explore possible participation of PNOC within the consortium of Tanglawan. However, that does not disclose or preclude PNOC from exploring other potential participation in the LNG hub value chain. As we've included in our corporate priorities, you can see there that we are clear with our role. We are not to compete with the private industry on this note. However, we serve as a catalyst, so to speak, in that we want to encourage the construction of gas-fired power plants. So we're actually looking into models on how we can be that catalyst. For instance, being the importer of LNG to provide and secure LNG off-takers with the LNG supply, for instance, possible power plants in SPUG areas for cleaner LNG-fired power plants. That's something that we're currently studying as part of our business model, just to be a catalyst to ensure that there are more power plants running on LNG that will be built soon.
So PNOC is free to explore with
Yes.
other potential partners.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right.
Definitely.
Sige, because I noticed the 100 million is intact and sayang naman kung hindi magamit yun. Okay. What else? Actually, my last question will be PNOCRC. I think this is, sorry for this comment, but the biggest elephant in the room. Because in the last in the last 5 years, it's been losing money, and to date, it has lost 227 million. No? So I say this biggest elephant in the room because, again, no, it's an investment of government, so government needs to see some returns on this investment. But yet, in the last 5 years, it has lost 227 million. So, John, what's the game
Yes.
plan?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We were asked to redefine ourselves a year ago, so we moved to big ticket projects, and we shelved the solar rooftops. So now we have a bigger role to play. We have a waste to energy project, which we did the pre-feasibility, and we're outsourcing the detailed feasibility in Baguio City. And then we have the solar farm for the Armed Forces Modernization Project. So most of our projects po now are big ticket projects at a pre-development stage, Mr. Chair.
Going with the principal statement of Admiral Lista that PNOC has no intention of competing with the private sector, but yet the subsidiary is competing with the private sector, no? Because I know for a fact that there's a lot of proponents who are interested in waste to energy, and then all of the solar rooftops are being serviced already by private proponents. So, in effect, PNOCRC is competing with the private sector.
Not really, Mr. Chair. We are partnering with the private sector, Mr. Chair. And if they're there, we back out. Just like the solar farm for the armed forces, no proponent from the private sector came in, so we came in and offered them.
That solar farm is operating already?
Wala pa po, Mr. Chair. Pre-development pa lang po.
Okay. But how do you plan to turn around PNOCRC? Because it's been losing for quite some time already. How long have you been there, John?
2 years, Mr. Chair.
So after 2 years, what's the game plan to reverse the losses?
Mr. Chair, as I said earlier, we're here to reinvent ourselves, to go into big ticket projects, because we were asked a year ago to stop the solar rooftop projects for government agencies and LGUs. So now we're moving to big ticket projects, which we think would be more viable for RC.
I strongly suggest DOE and to PNOC Mother to look at this subsidiary very carefully because it's really creating a negative perception of PNOC because it's losing money. No, for a simple reason, it's losing money, and we really need to think whether this renewable energy agenda of PNOC is consistent with PNOC, no? Because by the mere mandate, PNOC is a oil and gas company, no? But renewable energy is being done efficiently by the private sector. And I strongly suggest to once and for all look at its mandate and decide whether we want to enter into the or continue the renewable energy mandate of PNOC. Ako, I admit, no, energy security, oil and gas, this is really the primary mandate. But renewable energy, medyo alam natin marami nang gumagawa niyan. And the clear evidence is the numbers are not showing healthy results. So I really urge the PNOC family to talk about this and seriously discuss the future of PNOC RC. No, walang personalan dyan. No? I'm just looking at the numbers and I just want to make sure that every centavo allocated by the taxpayer is returned to the taxpayer positively. No? And or else parating lalabas at lalabas to, parating tatanungin at tatanungin to. Again, I will be defending your budget. If some senator will ask me about it, I have to say something and defend your budget. No? With that, submit to us, John, your turnaround strategy. No? And
Yes, Mr. Chair, we'll
so
comply.
I have to defend this. No? And how do you plan to turn this around? With what you mentioned earlier, I expect that what you mentioned earlier will generate positive revenues, hopefully. No? So submit to us those detailed turnaround strategy. No? Meron pa pala akong last PNOC EC, no, which has been quite the controversial subsidiary naman with the exit of Mr. Aquino. Now that we have an OIC, no, what's the plan of PNOC EC? No? I won't go into the reasons why Mr. Aquino was dismissed, no, but I just want to know, moving forward, what is the plan of PNOC EC?
Sir, for PNOCEC, moving forward, it plans to concentrate on its mandate, which is to explore, develop, and produce oil, gas, and coal.
So what are in 2020 are you expecting production of oil, gas, and coal?
Yes, sir. In 2020, starting this year, we already are into the development of COC 41 Mine 3, and we expect to produce the 1.3 million metric tons in 2 years. That is in 2020 and 2021. Prospectively, we also plan to develop COC 41 Santa Barbara, which has reserves of 2.4 million metric tons and which can be produced from 2024 to 2039. And also, we are planning to develop Dilalak, also in COC 41, with estimated reserves of 3.5 million metric tons, which will start production in
All coal, no?
these are all coal. We are also into the remediation of SC37 and the drilling of Chico, which is also in SC37. Drilling of Chico will be in the remediation will be for this year, and the drilling of Chico will be for next year.
Itong mga coal contracts ninyo, these are under the name of PNOCEC,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
And these are going to be explored by PNOCEC.
Yes, sir.
Kayo mismo ang
Yes, sir.
mag-explore niyan. But I don't see any budget request to explore those?
Sir,
do you-
because our budget, we do not have a budget because it is coming from our from our internally
Generated.
generated funds.
Yeah, but are those enough to explore all of those?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Meron kayong the internally generated funds are enough to explore
Yes, sir.
what you have mentioned earlier.
Yes, sir.
How about the oil and gas service contracts that you mentioned? Are
Uh,
those enough?
Yes, sir, for SC 37, which is the remediation and the exploration of Chico, it will the funds will also be coming from our own funds.
Enough na ba
Enough.
yung revenue nyo is coming from Malampaya?
Yes, sir.
Correct?
And the sir, the coal also will be producing like Mine 3 will be producing next year, and Santa Barbara will also be producing in 2021.
So all of this will have production.
Yes, sir.
Right now, are you producing any coal?
Not yet, sir, because we stopped producing integrated little ILB, which is also in COC 41 when the prices of coal in 2013 went down and the production cost is even higher than the cost to the price of coal.
So yung mga na-mention nyo kanina, currently wala tayong pinoproduce na coal.
Ngayon, only the SSCM, small scale.
Small scale,
Opo.
oo. But yung large scale,
Wala pa
wala.
po.
So in 2020,
We will start producing.
you will start producing.
Yes, sir.
And what is the total output for 2020? What is the total projected output?
Sir, for 2020 and 2021, it's 1.3
1.3
million
metric tons.
Opo. Development cost ba to?
Laki nito, ah.
Sir, yeah, okay.
Sigurado ba kayo?
Sir, yung 1.3 will be produced from 2020 to 2028. Ayun. Sir, it's from 2020 to 2028.
From 2020
1 to 2028.
to 2028,
Opo.
you'll be producing,
1.3 million metric tons.
so cumulative na ito.
Opo.
Okay. Okay. So, an 8-year, so 100 tons, tama ba?
Opo.
100,000 tons per annum, more or less.
Yes, sir. That's only, sir, for Mine 3. For Santa Barbara, which is 2.4 million metric tons, we will be producing from 2024 to 2039. But development will start in 2021.
When is I just want to know what is the total output for 2020 for coal. Because we're coming from zero, eh.
Yes, sir.
Diba? Ang gusto ko lang malaman naman, for next year, ano ba yung mapoproduce natin?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just to clarify, we will be starting development operations in 2020, and then potentially start the actual production in 2021. So during the 2020 year period, we'll be producing incidentals lang, yung dadaanan lang po nung development. But for the actual production, we're targeting almost 200,000 metric tons per year.
In 2021.
Oh, yes, sir. So mga 170 or maglalaro po doon sa...
So 2021, you'll be producing 200,000 metric tons.
Yeah, yes, sir. 170 to 200,000.
Okay. Tapos tuloy-tuloy na yon.
Yes, sir. Kung okay po yung production, we'll target that for 8 to 9 years po.
8 to 9 years. Pakisabit na sa amin yung coal
Yes, sir. Meron po.
production nyo.
Meron po.
And then, kanina na-mention, there's also oil and gas.
Yes, sir. If you remember, we had a gas discovery in 2015. We'll be going back to the well, start yung remediation. Meron ho kasing problema yung borehole, and we found out na hindi makalabas yung gas. So if the remediation is successful, we will intend to produce gas from that well. Other than that, meron pang isang prospect that we'll be going back to, and hopefully we'll be able to drill that by 2021 or 2020.
How many service contracts ang nasa pangalan ng PNOCEC?
We are involved in 8 service contracts
Okay.
and 4 COCs or coal operating contracts.
Doon sa 8, you mentioned dalawa ang under development.
Yung sa 8, yung isa po yung SC38, that's
Okay.
where we are producing
Tanggalin yan.
Malampaya.
Okay.
And then SC37, that's where we are planning to drill, that's onshore in Isabela. And then there are other contracts where we have currently, sir, yung sinasabi niyo merong geopolitical
Okay.
issues tayo. So yung we have the 58, 59, and 75, which are under force majeure due to
Okay.
the West Philippine Sea issue. And then yung 57, it's still we still have some issues on the farm in into CNOC and Mitra Energy. And then that's another contract is yung 74, that's the near shore. We're studying naman dun yung medyo maliit na oil find. But we are just a small participant in that contract.
So realistically, sa service contract SC38 and which one?
SC37.
SC37. So ito yung realistic
Opa.
na pwedeng galawin ng PNOCEC.
Yes, sir.
And then what is the timetable for these two?
Yung SC37, we're starting yung remediation this year. We would be, if we complete the procurement process, we could start the operations by December.
By December?
Apa.
Okay. So for these two service contracts, ano ang target na production output?
Yung sa, depende po kasi yung kung ano yung lumabas dun sa
But based on your
sa gas.
initial study,
We're targeting 10 billion cubic feet of gas, 10 BCF dun sa Mangosteen. But we need to prove that that the well could flow the gas. And then
lang to
yes sir, malit lang po yan kasi ito po yung mga onshore gas finds natin.
I don't know if this is enough for commercial operation.
It is. We had the San Antonio before, 3 BCF lang po siya. So we were able to help yung Isabela to have electricity for about 10,000 households.
Okay.
If you remember, there was the Libertad in Cebu, that's less than 1 BCF.
Wala pa siyang planta eh.
Yeah,
I heard it's
actually naubos na po siya. Sir, iba to sir yung sa Polyard. So it's another ano naman po. It's less than 6, I think 6 BCF po 'yan.
Paki-submit na lang sa amin ulit itong lahat ng list and timetable. What I'm driving at is for 2020, I want to know kung ano ba ang production output in coal and oil and gas. No?
Yes sir.
Just submit to us an updated list on the COCs that you have, as well as the service contracts that is under your name, and what is the timetable for production. No,
Yes sir.
paki-indicate
We
na lang
will
doon.
submit the updated one.
Alright, sige. With that, I don't have any more questions. So thank you very much for your time. The budget of PNOC and all of its subsidiaries is now approved, subject to the some of the items that you need to submit. Just to remind everyone, the items that you need to submit: a copy of the feasibility study for the energy supply base, a breakdown of the projected revenue stream of the ESB, and the of course yung updated list kanina ng PNOCEC and its timetable. So deem approved subject to the submissions, and we'll tackle this in plenary. All right, we need the submissions because I want to study it ahead so that kung may mga tanong, at least I know where the data will be and kung ano yung mga sasagutin sa kanila. All right, so thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Adjourn na? Okay. So thank you very much again, Admiral Lista, Yusek Posadas. Hearing is adjourned.